He can't wait outside? Guess what, now he's waiting inside. One day at work for my lunch break I decided to run around the corner to McDonald's. The drive-thru was packed, so I decided to just go inside. There was a homeless fellow out front who wasn't asking for money, but some food. I could tell he was legitimately in a bad way, so I told him, yeah, no problem man, sit tight and I'll bring you a couple McDoubles. I ordered 2 for me and 2 for him. And as I'm waiting for our order to be called, I noticed an employee had gone outside to pester him and tell him he can't be there and has to leave, etc. I go out and explain he's waiting for me. I was going to bring him some food. The worker adamantly stated that he cannot stand out front because it's bothering other customers. Well, I wasn't about to let them run him off because he's hungry and actually about to get some food. So, I decided instead of taking my food back to my office, I'd go ahead and eat in the restaurant, with my new friend as company. Like 2 minutes later our order is called, and while we ate, we had a nice chat. He told me about why he's homeless and why he doesn't trust the shelters here, etc. After we finished eating, we both left the restaurant and parted ways. Never saw him again, but he seemed like an alright guy. TLDR. Bought a homeless guy lunch. The staff didn't want him waiting outside for it, so I brought him inside as my lunch guest. Now to the comments. Never told this story until now. My spouse and I were visiting Portland, Oregon over a long weekend. We were walking around downtown and came upon a homeless man asking for money for food. Well, we were also starving, so I asked him what he'd like for food if he had the money. Subway, he said. Alrighty, not my first choice from a tastiness perspective, but I asked him if there was a nearby one and we walked there. I gave my order. Then my spouse gave hers, and when the gentleman began giving his, the employees started giving him a hard time. I'll admit I sort of pulled a mini Karen and loudly said, "Excuse me, this gentleman is with me, so anything he orders is on my bill." I told him to order whatever he wanted. I think he got like 2-foot-long subs, some cookies and a drink. We sat down and ate together for a while. Found out the reason he likes Subway was it doesn't hurt his teeth and it keeps longer. We said our goodbyes and he couldn't stop thanking me. That part felt uncomfortable. I didn't like being thanked for doing what I thought was the bare minimum. Anywho, that was the story of how I met this nice guy in Portland and had dinner with him. There should be another name for pulling a Karen to do something good. Probably. It was the best I could come up with to describe it. I sort of felt bad for doing, but if they'd just have taken his order without ignoring the man, I wouldn't have had to. I befriended a hobo named Josh whose house had burned down. Whenever I came across him, I'd give him a snack and whatever tips I made that night. The first night I met him, he scared away a mentally ill guy and he stayed with me afterwards until my bus came. I haven't seen him in a year, but I hope he is doing better. I'm glad to see I'm not the only one. I've been working at a kiosk next to a train station for the past 7 years, and we have a steady supply of homeless people hanging out there. In those 7 years, I've befriended a lot of them. One of them is a woman who was the only person to call me last Christmas. We've actually become quite close and text regularly. Another guy recently came by just to tell me he finally got his own home. His face lit up when he told me he had vacuumed. Last week I heard a lot of commotion, and when I went outside, I saw another regular freaking out and screaming at random people. When he turned around and saw me, he immediately calmed down and apologized and thanked me for keeping him grounded. I can't express how much those interactions, big or small, mean to me. They often tell me that out of all my co-workers, I'm the only one that treats them like human beings, and that breaks my heart. They're there when I open up at 6 a.m. and I feel safer because I know if something happens, they'll have my back. Edit, thanks for the awards, I appreciate them, but please take my comment as an opportunity to do something nice for a stranger today. Shit dude, I'd call you on Christmas, you seem a good sort. There was a homeless man who lived mostly in the bus shelter across the road from a school for kids, 12 to 16 year. His clothes were black, His skin was filthy and sometimes very red, as if he was having a bad reaction to something. Locals left him bedding, food, etc. He was polite but didn't like adults much. The council would spray clean the shelter and throw all his possessions away. The local story was that he used to be the headmaster of the school. His house burnt down, killing his wife and children. He couldn't bear to be in a building after or too far away from looking over the school. A new family moved into some posh houses nearby and made a big thing of getting him moved on. The council tried and the community turned on the council. Local paper did a piece on who he was, and his shelter was filled with new bedding, flasks, boxes of food. Community wanted him to stay in his shelter. He was one of them. Know a similar one to that. Guy set up his camp opposite a graveyard so he could see the plots of his family killed in a house fire. He never begged or caused problems. He had a small pension for money, but he just couldn't sleep inside or out of sight of their graves without having massive panic attacks. During the day he would spend his time litter picking the area and tending to the plants in the graveyard. Rich Miserable Witch bought the house near where he camped and started trying to get him moved on. Neighbor invited him in and allowed him to set up his camp at the bottom of their garden. They even went as far as to build him a little shed with a shower, a toilet and power. When he finally passed on, I heard there were hundreds of locals at his funeral as he was finally laid to rest with his family. It's wonderful that he had a nice shelter in the end. Out of curiosity, why didn't he trust the shelters? From what I've heard, through homeless people, it's that shelters are usually cramped, have zero privacy, and like the other person said, you can't go to sleep without having all your stuff stolen. It's actually insane how many of them rather sleep outside, which also isn't safe at all, than go to a shelter because of that. Jumping on this comment. When I was 17, I spent 2 weeks in a night shelter. Essentially, they give you a floor to sleep on from 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. then you're kicked out for the day. For some reason, since I was closer to 18, so they didn't bother to put me in a home. People I knew there said they would land a job for a little bit, but if they didn't get out of work before 7, the shelter wouldn't let them back in. Overall, the treatment there was shitty. Just because you were homeless, the management would abuse you. The only reason they're helping homeless is to be praised. I worked for my jerks once. I used to work overnights. As I was leaving one morning, I saw this poor fellow afraid to go in because he's homeless and not buying food. It was below zero with wind chill. It was 6 a.m. and he's nestled against the side of the building trying to stay out of the wind. I said nope. Brought him inside, and told him he was allowed anything he wanted. He was very hesitant to even order a hash brown or coffee. I asked him what he liked to eat, and when he wouldn't tell me, I asked him if he liked this and that. He mumbled yes. So, I ordered him a slew of food. If I recall, almost $30 in food, including pies that he could eat later. Then I got him a gift card for another $20 and told him it's not much. But he's now a customer and they couldn't kick him out today. I'd seen some customers order a coffee and occupy a table for all 8 of my hours, and my managers were cool and didn't care if someone ordered or not. Just no harassing others. I never did see him again. He looked ready to cry, and I hope he's doing okay. That's a really clever idea, giving him a gift card. Suddenly he can be a customer, which he may view a kind of status increase and justification enough to allow him to get out of the cold. I wonder if that gift card was slowly spent over many weeks buying not just a rare warm drink or snack, but providing a place of refuge for a while. It's a good idea to carry a few $5 restaurant gift cards with you in case you meet someone in need. Good on you. I used to work as an advocate for people with disabilities. We helped them find any type of resources needed, in-home health care, benefits, employment if wanted, etc. I worked mainly alone in my office, when I wasn't traveling. The building was in an area that has a large homeless population. I always kept snacks and drinks in the office and cheap cigarettes for the guys that frequently came through the parking lot. Well, management had a fit when a new man showed up. He was well into his 70s, was pretty bad off, and I befriended him like I did the others that stayed in that area. They called my parent office and complained that I was allowing non-clients into the building. Actually, I was giving out water and protein snacks in 105-degree weather. You know, being a human. They said that only clients could be inside. Okay, since all we required was someone to say he or she had a disability, no other proof, that was easy. I made all of them clients and helped them with goals. As of today, 5 years later, 5 are still in housing I helped them obtain. This just made me smile. I love your story.